Some people are not looking for love, friendship, or understanding. They are looking for control. They do not argue. They do not scream. They do not chase. They simply learn how your mind works, then quietly make it work against you. They make you think it was your idea to trust them, your choice to stay, your fault that it hurts. This is how players win, not by being smarter, but by moving faster than your awareness. Before you even feel attached, they have already tested you. Before you question their behavior, they have already given you an excuse. Before you complain, they have already framed you as the problem. You think you are in a relationship. They think they are running a system. You are about to see that system. 7 rules, used in dating, friendships, work, even in so-called healing spaces. You will recognize people from your past. You might recognize yourself. That will sting a little. Good. Pain is information. It means part of you is finally waking up. Do not listen to these rules as ideas. Watch how your body reacts. The tightness in your chest when you remember someone who pulled away without warning. The anger when you see how easily they turned your kindness into a leash. The shame when you remember how hard you tried to be good enough for someone who was never planning to treat you fairly. This is not about hating them. This is about no longer volunteering to play their game. Once you see the rules, you stop being the piece and start becoming the person who can walk off the board. Rule of first information. Whoever frames first wins. Framing is simple. It is the first explanation your mind accepts about what is happening. After that, your brain uses that story as the lens to judge everything else. Same facts, different frame, different decision. Tversky and Kahneman showed this clearly. People react very differently to the same situation depending on how it is first described. Players understand this without reading a single study. That is why they rush to be the first to define reality between you. Notice how fast they start setting labels. Early on, they talk about exes being crazy, obsessed, or toxic. They call themselves brutally honest, too real for most people, or emotionally damaged but genuine. They tell you that you are different, intense, too sensitive, or hard to read. These are not random comments. They are installing language in your mind. Once you accept it, your brain starts using those words as shortcuts. Just like anchoring in Kahneman's work, the first number you hear affects every guess you make after that. The first story you hear about them or about you becomes the anchor for the entire connection. Here is what that looks like in real time. They say an ex was crazy. Later, when you start to feel confused, you remember that word. Your brain does not ask, "Are they treating me badly?" It asks, "Am I starting to act like that crazy ex?" You check yourself instead of checking them. Or they tell you, "I am just blunt. People cannot handle the truth from me." Later, when they insult you, you feel hurt but also guilty. You think, maybe I am just weak. Maybe they are just honest. They did not have to win the argument. They won before the argument even happened, because they defined what normal looks like with them. This is emotional baseline control. They quietly declare what is standard in this connection. What is normal response time? What is normal intimacy? What is normal conflict? They might say, "I am not a texting person," while messaging you non-stop at first. Later, when they pull back and reply hours or days later, you feel the loss, but you also remember their early statement. So now their distance feels like a personality trait, not a choice. Or they say, "I don't do drama." You learn that anytime you bring up a concern, they can call it drama. They have framed calm as silence and anything emotional as overreaction. Research on anchoring and social norms shows how easy it is to bend perception. In Solomon Ash's conformity studies, people agreed with clearly wrong answers simply because the group acted like that answer was normal. In relationships, the group is often just this one person. If they act like their way of doing things is standard, your nervous system starts to calibrate to them. You stop asking, "Is this healthy?" and start asking, "How do I adjust so I do not lose them?" Players also frame moral roles early. They position themselves as misunderstood, unlucky, or always betrayed. Maybe they say that they always date people who use them. or that no one sticks around once they see the real them. At first, this makes you feel special. You want to be the person who finally understands them. But notice the hidden contract. They are the wounded hero, and you are the lucky person who gets access, or the difficult person who must not add to their pain. Later, when you bring up a boundary, they can hint that you are just like everyone else who hurt them. Now, defending yourself feels like you are attacking a victim. Gaslighting and coercive control works this way. It is not only about blatant lies. It is about building a stage where any attempt to stand up for yourself looks like proof that you are the problem. If you shut down, they say you are cold. If you express emotion, they say you are unstable. If you ask for clarity, they say you are controlling. The frame is fixed, so every move you make becomes evidence against you. The darkest part is this: they do not need to out-argue you. They just need to set the definitions first. Tversky and Kahneman's work on System 1 and System 2 thinking shows that your fast, automatic mind latches onto the first story that feels simple and clear. After that, confirmation bias keeps you searching for proof that the first story was right. If they framed their ex as crazy, you will notice any moment when you feel more emotional and silently compare yourself to that crazy ex. If they framed you as too sensitive, you will notice every moment you feel hurt and blame it on sensitivity instead of disrespect. That is how players rig your internal judge. You think you are assessing what is happening fairly. You are not. You are judging everything from inside the story they gave you at the start. The way out begins with slowing down at the beginning of any connection and asking very hard questions about first information. How fast are they setting labels for themselves, for you, and for the people from their past? How much of what you believe about them came from their mouth rather than their actions? When someone hurries to define what you are, what they are, and what everyone else was, understand this: they are not just sharing, they are choosing the rules of the game before you even know you are playing. 2. Rule of selective availability. Give less, control more. Selective availability is simple. They decide when they exist in your reality. They are present when it benefits them. They vanish when it benefits them. You feel like you are chasing a rare person. In reality, you are just reacting to controlled scarcity. Robert Cialdini's research has shown that people place higher value on things that are limited. Players apply this not to objects, but to their time, attention, and presence. In the beginning, they may give a lot: fast replies, long calls, deep talks, late at night, intense eye contact. They show you the version of them that is always there, always tuned in, always curious about you. During this phase, your brain is building a model of who they are. That model now includes available and engaged. Then slowly, or sometimes suddenly, they pull back. Texts get shorter, calls become rare, plans become vague. They are busy, tired, overwhelmed, or just needing space. You feel the drop, and your nervous system reacts like it just lost oxygen. This is where intermittent reinforcement takes over. B.F. Skinner found that when rewards are unpredictable, animals work harder and become more obsessed. A slot machine does not pay every time. It pays just enough, at random, to keep the player hooked. Human brains respond the same way. When you never know when the next good moment will arrive, you start thinking about it constantly. You check your phone, you reread old messages, you replay old conversations. The gap between rewards becomes more painful than the rewards are pleasant, but you cannot walk away because your brain is chasing the next high. Players create early peak experiences to anchor your memory. Maybe it is an intense romantic night, a long drive talking about childhood, or a weekend where they act like you are the center of their universe. Daniel Kahneman's work on the peak end rule shows that when people look back, they judge an experience by its peak and its ending, not by the average of all moments. So even if most of your time with them is confusing or frustrating, your mind holds on to those first peaks. You do not remember them accurately. You remember your own intense feeling and treat that as proof of their real self. Once those peaks are in place, the player starts to reduce access. They answer late, but with just enough charm to calm you down. They cancel plans but then surprise you later with a sweet message. They disappear on social media, then suddenly like your post or send something flirty. The timing is never truly random. It is often just when you start to pull back or get angry. They are training your nervous system. Stay close, stay hopeful, do not complain too much, and eventually you will get another hit. This is how your behavior starts to bend. In the gaps, you tell yourself stories to protect the connection. They are busy. They have a lot going on. They are just different. They are not into texting. You defend them to friends. You defend them in your own head. You start overperforming to earn their presence. You send longer messages to re-engage them. You plan surprises. You become extra understanding. You lower your standards. And when they finally appear again, a simple message or a small gesture feels huge. Not because it is actually huge, but because your system was starved. You also start competing with people who may not even exist. Since they are scarce, your mind imagines rivals. Maybe they are talking to someone else. Maybe that is why they are distant. That thought does not make you leave. It makes you try harder to be special. Now their minimal energy has turned into your maximum effort. They did not offer more of themselves. They simply made their attention hard to access, and your brain did the rest. Notice the power shift here. In a healthy bond, both people invest, show up, and remain roughly consistent. Connection is built through steady presence, not dramatic swings. With a player, your attachment grows the most when they are not there. Your feelings grow in the silence, in the waiting, in the hoping. You are bonding with an idea, not with their real day-to-day self. They become the scarce prize in your head, while in reality, they are just someone who answers when it suits them. The more you accept selective availability, the more they can control the emotional climate. If they want you chasing, they go quiet. If they want you calm, they drop some warmth. If they sense you are getting stronger, they may give another peek to reset your hope. This is not chaos. It is a pattern. They do not win by giving you more. They win by giving you less, on purpose, and letting your own nervous system do the heavy lifting. Here is the ugly truth. Someone who truly values you does not treat their presence like a luxury item. They do not base the connection on how much you can tolerate their absence. They do not measure your worth by how long you will wait in confusion. When a person keeps you emotionally hungry and then feeds you in random small bites, they are not busy or bad at texting. They are comfortable with your addiction because it keeps you exactly where they want you. Once you see this rule, you start judging people less by how intense the highs feel and more by how stable the middle is. Consistency becomes more attractive than chaos. Clarity becomes more attractive than emotional gambling. At that point, selective availability stops being romantic mystery and starts being what it really is: control disguised as personality. 3. Rule of pattern testing. Watch reactions, not words. Players do not care much about what you say. They care about what your body does when you feel stressed, rejected, praised, or compared. From the outside, it just looks like normal early relationship moments. A teasing joke here, a canceled plan there, a slightly mean comment followed by a smile. On the inside, they are running tests. They are not guessing your weak spots. They are collecting live data until they know exactly how to move you. Psychologist Paul Ekman showed that tiny facial movements and body shifts give away real emotion, even when someone tries to hide it. Players know this in a street way. They watch your micro reactions. When they criticize your outfit as a joke, they look at your eyes. Do they see a flash of hurt before you laugh it off? When they are late and brush it aside, do your shoulders drop just slightly? When they mention an attractive friend, do you go quiet for half a second? You may think you are playing it cool. Your nervous system is not. They use what I will call micro-stress tests, small doses of tension to see how you handle them. They cancel a plan last minute with a weak excuse. They show up late without apologizing properly. They lightly insult something you care about, then say they are just kidding. They compare you to an ex or to someone else, but only a little, so you cannot fully call it out. From your side, each thing feels too small to fight over. You tell yourself not to make a big deal out of it. From their side, each thing is a measurement. Do you freeze? Do you fawn? Do you fight? Or do you fold? In attachment research, Mary Ainsworth created the strange situation test. to study how babies react to separation and reunion with a caregiver. Some cry and cling, some ignore, some become very distressed but cannot be soothed. From those reactions, she could see patterns of attachment. Players create a kind of strange situation for your adult nervous system. When they pull away suddenly, do you panic and reach out more? When they withdraw affection, do you start over-explaining and apologizing? When they make you jealous, do you become extra sweet or start an argument? They are learning your attachment style by observing your reaction to distance and closeness. Over time, they build a detailed mental file on you. They learn your fear of abandonment. Maybe your messages get longer and more emotional when you feel ignored. They learn your need for approval. Maybe your whole mood lifts when they give a small compliment. They learn your conflict tolerance. Maybe you back down fast when voices rise even slightly. They learn your guilt triggers. Maybe you crumble as soon as they look disappointed, even if you did nothing wrong. Research on narcissism shows that skilled manipulators do not go after random insecurities. They use the exact ones that you reveal through your responses. The important point is that your reactions are training them. This is operant conditioning in reverse. In basic conditioning, animals learn what behavior brings reward. With players, they learn what tactic brings control. If, when they ignore your message, you respond with a long emotional essay, they learn that distance makes you chase. If, when they criticize you, you explain yourself for half an hour, they learn that blame makes you bend. If, when they talk about an ex, you become extra loving, they learn that jealousy makes you perform, so they adjust. If you over-explain and hate the feeling that someone is upset with you, they will lean on guilt. They might sigh and say that they are just disappointed, or that they thought you were different. They see how fast you rush in to fix it, even when the situation is not your fault. If you panic at any distance, they will use withdrawer. They know you will send the first message. You will ask what is wrong. You will lower your needs to get them back. If you tolerate small disrespect, they will slowly increase it and see nothing stopping them. This is why it often feels like their behavior gets worse over time. Not random, but strangely suited to your exact fears. At first, they may have been charming, kind, and attentive. That phase was not pure kindness. It was also information gathering. Every confession you gave, every story you shared, every reaction you tried to hide, all of it went into their mental file. By the time you finally start to question them, they already know how you usually react, what you doubt about yourself, and what you will forgive. Many people tell themselves that those early strange moments did not mean anything. The light insult that hurt, the first time they disappeared for a day, the joke that crossed a line. You think, it was just a bad day. They were just stressed. Everyone slips sometimes. Sometimes that is true. Healthy people do make mistakes. The difference is that a healthy person notices your reaction and tries not to hurt you in that way again. A player notices your reaction and files it away as a useful tool. That is the chilling part. What felt like small accidents were often not accidents. They were mini experiments. Did you pull away when they made a cutting comment? Or did you lean in harder to prove you are not like their mean ex? Did you accept blame for conflicts you did not start? Or did you calmly hold your ground? Did you beg when they went cold? Or did you match their distance? Their future behavior towards you is shaped by those answers. So what can you do with this knowledge? First, understand that you are not crazy for feeling that they knew exactly where to hit you. In many cases, they did. Your reactions gave them a clear map. Second, start watching your own patterns the way they do. Notice when you rush to fix, to explain, to please, to calm them. Notice when silence from them sends you into overthinking. Those are not just reactions. Those are doors a manipulative person can walk through. Finally, when someone new in your life starts throwing little tests at you, you do not have to prove that you are strong enough to handle them. You do not have to show that you are chill with disrespect or unpredictable behavior. You can simply decide that you do not want to spend your time with someone who is studying your reactions more than your character. Kind people want to know what comforts you. Players want to know what controls you. When you start watching patterns instead of excuses, you stop being easy to test and much harder to use. 4. Rule of reward shock. Mix warmth with cold precision. Reward shock is emotional whiplash. It happens when someone gives you intense warmth, affection, or attention, then suddenly shifts into cold distance or indifference. Your mind cannot settle. Your body cannot relax. You start doing anything you can to bring back the warm version of them, even if that version only showed up a few times. This is not random moodiness. For players, it is a system that hooks your nervous system on them. At the core of reward shock is the same pattern B.F. Skinner saw in his work on intermittent reinforcement. When an animal gets a reward at unpredictable times, it actually becomes more attached to the behavior that leads to the reward. In simple terms, not knowing when the good thing will happen makes the brain chase it harder. Players combine this with human emotions. They do not just give you rewards like attention. They give you emotional highs that feel like love, safety, or destiny, then pull away so fast that your entire body reacts. It often starts with what people call love bombing. At first, they might message you constantly, say intense things very early, share deep details about themselves, praise you in a way that hits your deepest insecurities. They might tell you that you are different, that they feel closer to you than anyone, that you are the only person who really sees them. They may also show this with actions, like making time for you, wanting to see you often, being very affectionate or sexual, giving gifts, or making big plans for the future. Your brain and body pair their presence with high arousal, excitement, passion, relief, even a sense of being rescued. Then comes the shock. The tone changes. They reply slower. The compliments stop. The sexual or emotional energy drops. They seem bored or irritated. Maybe they start saying they need space, or that they are stressed, or that you are being too much. You feel the shift like a punch in the stomach. That same person who made you feel special now makes you feel like a burden. It is not a small change. It is a deep contrast. Trauma bond research and studies on abusive relationships show that when the same person is both comfort and source of pain, the bond becomes extremely strong. You are not just attached, you are hooked. The contrast effect explains why their coldness feels so brutal. Research on perception and pleasure shows that people judge experiences relative to what came before. If you are very cold and then step into a room that is mildly warm, it feels amazing. If you are already hot and enter that same room, it feels normal or even cool. With players, the emotional heat was so high at the start that their later neutral behavior feels like freezing rejection. They might just send shorter messages or act a bit distant, but compared to before, your system experiences it as punishment. You begin to feel like you must have done something wrong. That is when your behavior starts to change. During the cold phases, you go into emotional survival mode. You replay what you said. You check old messages. You ask yourself if you were too needy, too quiet, too honest, too anything. You may apologize without even knowing what for, just to make the tension stop. You become extremely kind, soft, and giving, hoping to earn back the version of them who was so loving and intense. You walk on eggshells, afraid that any wrong move will push them further away. Psychologist Martin Seligman studied learned helplessness, where animals and humans stop trying to change a bad situation after repeated experiences of pain they cannot control. In reward shock relationships, you start to feel like the only control you have is to please them. You cannot predict their mood. You cannot make them stable, so you focus on changing yourself. You think that if you can just be perfect enough, patient enough, and understanding enough, they will stay in their warm state. When they do suddenly become kind again, you treat it as proof that your effort paid off, even though they were the one who chose to switch. This cycle wires your brain in a painful way. Warm phase, you feel high. Shock phase, you feel anxious and desperate. Tiny reward, you feel relief and more attached. The emotional peaks and crashes keep you thinking about them all the time. You may start losing interest in hobbies, friends, or your own needs. Nothing feels as bright as those warm moments with them, and nothing feels as empty as their coldness. That roller coaster becomes your new normal, so stability from another person can seem dull at first. From the player's side, they do not have to constantly manage you. After enough cycles, your own mind does that job. You start scanning their mood the moment you see their name pop up on your screen. A short reply sends you into analysis. A kind message fills you with hope. You change how you speak, dress, or behave to avoid the cold version and attract the warm one. They have trained you to self-correct. Even if they stop pushing as hard, the damage is done. Your nervous system has linked them to emotional extremes. A very painful part of reward shock is that you start to believe the warm version is their true self, and the cold version is a misunderstanding. You tell yourself that they are just scared, that their trauma is getting in the way, that their distance is really a sign they care too much. Your mind protects the good image of them, because that image gave you such strong feelings of love and meaning. Cognitive dissonance makes it hard to hold both truths, that they can be incredibly charming and also deeply unkind. To reduce that tension, you often erase or excuse the cold parts and chase the fantasy instead. Meanwhile, they may support this illusion. When you confront them about the coldness, they can flip and become warm again, maybe even more warm than before. They might say they are sorry, talk about their painful past, say they push people away when they care. That sudden return of warmth hits you like a drug after withdrawal. In that moment, your anger melts. You feel close again. You stop pressing for real change. You forgive without seeing that this is yet another peak in the same cycle. Over time, this rule teaches you a harsh habit: to treat your own needs as a threat to connection. You learn that asking for consistency can trigger coldness. Saying you are hurt can trigger distance. So you start silencing yourself. You praise them more, complain less, and bend your limits. From the outside, it may look like you are choosing to stay. On the inside, your choices are being shaped by fear and craving. You are afraid of going back into that frozen zone, and you crave the intense warmth that started it all. The most important thing to understand is that this cycle is not proof of deep love. It is proof of deep nervous system activation. Chaos, relief, tension, and passion can feel like love, but they are not the same as respect, care, and reliability. Healthy love can be exciting, but it does not regularly make you feel sick, scared, or small. It does not use distance as a tool or closeness as a reward for obedience. Breaking free from reward shock often starts with a very simple but hard shift in standards. Stop treating emotional highs as the measure of a relationship and start treating emotional safety as the measure. Ask yourself, how do I feel most of the time with this person? Calm or anxious? Seen or invisible? Safe to be real, or constantly afraid of triggering their cold side? The average state matters more than the peaks. The player wants you to forget how often you were confused and remember only how high the highs were. Your strength grows when you start doing the opposite. Remember how the pattern felt in your body, not just how the sweetest moments felt in your mind. That is how you stop begging for breadcrumbs from the same hand that keeps taking the loaf away. 5. Rule of identity reflection. Become their mirror. Identity reflection is what happens when a player stops trying to impress you as themselves and instead starts acting like a perfect mirror of you. It feels magical at first. You talk and they just get it. They like the same music, think the same way about family, hate the same things, dream the same dreams. You feel like you finally met someone who sees you, maybe even more clearly than you see yourself. That feeling lowers your guard faster than almost anything. Players know that. Psychology research on the similarity attraction effect has shown that people bond faster with those who seem similar in values, interests, and style. Shared traits make us feel safe and understood. Most people experience this naturally when they meet someone with common ground. Players do something different. They do not wait to find real overlap. They study you and then shapeshift into your ideal match. From the start, they scan for identity hooks, the parts of yourself you most want others to recognize. Maybe you need to feel special, smarter than average, or more spiritual than most. Maybe you see yourself as a rebel who does not follow rules, or as a deeply caring person who always shows up. Maybe you feel misunderstood by family or past partners. As you talk, you reveal these points in small ways. You say things like, "People usually do not get how my mind works," or "I have always felt different from everyone around me." Their eyes light up. They say they feel the same. They might even claim they struggled in ways that match your story almost exactly. Research on psychopathy sometimes calls this chameleon-like behavior. Instead of having a stable self in relationships, they slip into whatever shape will gain trust fastest. If you are very into self-development, they suddenly talk about therapy, healing, and growth. If you are more skeptical and logical, they highlight their rational side and act like they do not care about emotions. If you secretly want to feel like a savior, they lean into being broken and in need of your unique support. They are not just mirroring random traits. They are reflecting back your ideal self. This can feel like a dream. At last, someone sees your depth, your edge, your softness, your complexity. They nod at the right moments. They share stories that seem to match your wounds. They finish your sentences. They predict what you will say next. You experience what attachment research calls mirroring, where a caregiver reflects a child's inner world back to them. That kind of reflection builds a strong, secure sense of self. But here, the reflection is not stable or honest. It is a hook. This is what you could call narcissistic supply inversion. Usually, with a narcissistic person, others are used as mirrors to feed their ego. With a player who uses identity reflection, they flip that pattern. They act as your mirror so tightly that you get addicted to the version of yourself that appears when you are around them. Instead of you using them to feel special in a natural way, they use your need to feel special to keep you loyal. You think, with them, I feel like my best self. They think, with this act, I can keep control. The trick is that they are not really seeing you with some deep power. They are reading you. Just like people who use cold reading in magic shows or fake psychic work. They let you talk, then feed your words back with small twists that sound insightful. You say you had a rough childhood. They say they always sensed you were stronger than your past. You mention a dream. They act like they always wanted the same thing, but never met anyone else who did until you. Every reaction you have gives them more information. Then they stack it into a carefully tailored persona that fits your needs. As this goes on, your self-concept starts to wrap itself around the connection. You are not just thinking, I like this person. You are thinking, I like who I am with this person. That is a much deeper hook. When you believe no one else has understood you this way, you overlook red flags. You feel that losing them would mean losing the only witness to your real self. So you tolerate things that go against your values because you do not want to go back to feeling unseen. Over time, you might notice cracks, little moments where their story changes depending on who is around, times when they forget something they claimed was central to who they are, sudden shifts in taste or belief that seem too extreme. Maybe they tell you they hate drama, but your friend says they saw them in a very dramatic argument with someone else. Maybe they said they barely drink, but then you see photos of them partying hard. Your gut senses a mismatch, but your heart is attached to the mirror. You want to explain away the differences because the cost of admitting the act feels huge. Then comes the part that hurts the most. When they pull back, change, or leave, you do not just miss them as a person. You feel like you have lost access to a version of yourself. Without their constant validation and understanding, you may feel flat, average, or invisible again. It can feel like, no one will ever get me like that. This is why the grief after these relationships can feel heavier than the length of the connection would suggest. In reality, your true self did not disappear. What disappeared was a reflection that was always controlled by them. They did not give you your depth, your insight, your uniqueness. Those things were already there. They simply studied them, exaggerated them, and mirrored them back, then acted as if they were the only person who could do that. The truth is that healthy people can see you too, just without turning into a fake copy of you. To protect yourself from this rule, you do not have to become cold or closed. You can stay open, but slow down. Notice the pacing. Is this person just like you in almost every way, very quickly? Do their tastes, beliefs, and stories always line up with what you find attractive in yourself? Do they change their tone or opinions a lot depending on what you just said? That is often a sign of performance, not connection. Also, pay attention to how they respond when you disagree or reveal a side of yourself that is not flattering. Does the connection stay steady, or do they seem to lose interest when you are not shining? A real bond can hold differences and low moments. A mirrored act often cracks when you stop feeding it energy. Finally, Remind yourself that feeling deeply seen is not proof that the other person is honest. Players can scan and mirror feelings they do not actually respect. You do not need to fear being understood. You just need to watch what they do with that understanding. Do they use it to support you or to shape-shift and keep you hooked? The person who truly fits you will not need to become your reflection. They will stand as their own person beside you and let both of you be real. 6. Rule of controlled vulnerability. Bleed just enough to disarm. Controlled vulnerability is not real openness. It is a staged performance that looks like honesty, but is built to get a specific reaction out of you. The player does not share to connect. They share to disarm you, to lower your guard, and to buy more chances to keep their behavior unchallenged. Research on self-disclosure, like Arthur Aaron's studies on how personal questions can quickly build closeness, shows that sharing private stories increases trust. When someone tells you about their pain, your brain tends to relax around them. You think, they would not open up like this if they had bad intentions. Players know this effect, even if they have never read a study. That is why their vulnerability often arrives at very precise moments. They almost never lead with it in the very first contact, because that would feel strange. Instead, they wait until you are a bit invested, then drop something heavy but controlled. It could be a story about a rough childhood, a cruel ex, a mental health struggle, a dark secret, or a big failure. It is detailed enough to seem raw, but one part matters most. It matches exactly what you are wired to care about or rescue. If you see yourself as a healer, they are broken. If you see yourself as loyal, they have been betrayed. If you see yourself as patient, they admit they are hard to love. Your identity hooks and their stories quietly lock together. This is not the same as normal sharing. In grooming patterns in cults and abusive relationships, early vulnerability is often used to create a fast bond. The leader or partner shares their wounds just when new members or lovers are unsure whether to fully trust. That vulnerability acts like proof. You think, a manipulator would never talk like this, but they would. In fact, it is one of their strongest tools. A key function of controlled vulnerability is preemptive justification. By telling you about their trauma or pain up front, they plant reasons in your mind that you can later use to excuse their choices. They might say they have trust issues because of what an ex did to them. Later, when they snoop through your phone or accuse you without cause, part of you feels angry, but another part says, I know they are just scared because of their past. Or they tell you they shut down when things get serious because of childhood neglect. Later, when they withdraw or go silent after intimacy, you feel hurt, but you also feel like you should be gentle and not take it personally. This connects to research on attribution, the way people explain behavior. Once you accept a certain story as the reason behind someone's actions, your mind keeps returning to it. Instead of thinking, they are being unfair, you think, they are damaged. Instead of thinking, this pattern is not okay for me, you think, this pattern makes sense given their pain, so I should be patient. Without noticing, you move their behavior from the unacceptable box into the understandable box, and from there it often slides into the tolerated box. For people with anxious, codependent, or highly empathetic traits, this rule hits especially hard. Attachment research shows that many of us have a strong caregiving system. When we see another person suffering, we feel a pull to comfort, fix, or save them. A player who uses controlled vulnerability learns how to sit right in that spot. They may say things like, I push people away when they get close, or everyone leaves once they see how messed up I am. These lines do double duty. They both warn you and dare you. Your inner rescuer hears a challenge. I will be the one who does not leave. I will prove I am different. From there, your role shifts without you noticing. You are no longer just a partner, friend, or lover. You are also their private therapist, healer, or emotional parent. You forgive things you would never accept from someone who had not shared so much pain with you. You downplay your own needs because, compared to what they have been through, your needs feel small. When they hurt you, you quickly flip into thinking about how hurt they must be inside to act like this. Your anger turns into concern. Your boundaries melt into comforting. The twist is that their vulnerability is rarely followed by steady growth or accountability. A sincere person who shares a wound will usually also show some intention to work on it in real ways. Therapy, self-reflection, consistent change. A player uses the story mostly as a shield. The pattern often looks like this. They open up, you feel closer. They behave badly, you confront them. They remind you of their pain, you soften. The cycle resets. Over time, nothing really improves, but your tolerance gradually expands. Another sign of controlled vulnerability is how focused it is on gaining your sympathy rather than understanding you. Notice how much space they give to their narrative versus how much they truly ask and listen about yours. Do they bring up their trauma mostly when you start to pull away, question them, or raise a boundary? Does their self-disclosure arrive right after you have pointed out something hurtful? In those moments, their story works like a tranquilizer for your suspicion. Instead of following your concern, you end up comforting them. It can feel cruel to admit that some of the most moving stories you heard may have been used as tools. That does not mean their pain was fake. Many players really did suffer. But there is a difference between sharing pain and using pain. Real vulnerability does not demand that you ignore your own limits. It does not turn every conversation about harm into a conversation about how hard life has been for the person doing the harm. To protect yourself from this rule, begin by separating empathy from permission. You can feel deeply for someone's past and still decide that their present behavior is not acceptable in your life. You can say, I understand where this comes from, and I still need respect and safety. Their wounds do not cancel your needs. Also, pay attention to follow-through. When they share a big hurt, do they later take real steps toward healing, or do they just repeat the same story whenever they are called out? Does their vulnerability open space for mutual sharing, or does it always pull the focus back to them? If your hurt gets overshadowed every time by their sad history, that is not intimacy. That is control through guilt. Finally, remember that you are not a cure. Healthy love and care can support someone's growth, but it cannot fix what they refuse to face. When a person uses vulnerability as a way to keep you close while continuing harmful patterns, you are not abandoning them by stepping back. You are refusing to be used as a bandage over a wound they will not clean. Real openness feels steady, shared, and followed by action. Controlled vulnerability feels dramatic, perfectly timed, and strangely disconnected from lasting change. When you start to see that difference, you stop mistaking emotional confession for proof of a good heart, and you give your trust to those who earn it with both their stories and their choices. 7. Rule of emotional exit. Leave first. Leave clean. Emotional exit is the final move in the player's system. It is not just them walking away. It is how they leave you confused, doubting yourself, and still holding a cleaned-up image of them in your mind. They do not want a real ending. They want an ending that keeps their hands looking clean, and your heart feeling messy. Research on ghosting and ambiguous loss shows that unclear endings often hurt more than clear rejection. When someone says in direct words that they do not want to continue, your brain can start to process that reality. It hurts, but there is a solid shape to the pain. When someone fades, half explains, or flips the story so fast that nothing makes sense, your mind keeps spinning. Players rely on that spin. While you are stuck replaying the past, they are already lining up the next target. Emotional exit usually begins long before you see it. Earlier, with pattern testing and reward shock, they learned how you react to distance, conflict, and guilt. They also learned how much you will tolerate and how deeply you are attached. As time goes on, they silently check the balance of the relationship. Here, social exchange theory applies. People weigh what they get against what it costs. For a player, the get is your attention, effort, admiration, or resources. The cost is how much they must show up, change, or face exposure. When that cost starts to rise, they begin planning an exit. Sometimes the shift is slow. They text a bit less, sound less curious, cancel more plans, and give fewer details about their life. Their warmth drops, their stories thin out. If you ask what is wrong, they say they are just tired or going through a lot. Other times, the exit is sharp. A big high is followed by sudden cold. Maybe you finally ask a clear question or set a firm boundary, and shortly after, they pull back hard. In both cases, the goal is the same: to create distance without naming what they have been doing. When they do offer an explanation, it is often polished but empty. They might say they are not ready for a relationship, need to work on themselves, are scared of hurting you, or feel you deserve better. They might blame timing, stress, family issues, or vague mental health struggles. None of these things are fake in the world. But with a player, notice how the reason never matches the pattern. They do not address the tests, the push-pull, the broken promises, or the way they used your empathy. They speak as if the only problem is some sad, tragic flaw in them, not the choices they made with you. This type of exit leaves you holding all the loose ends. Your mind goes into overdrive trying to close the gaps. Leon Festinger's idea of cognitive dissonance explains this pressure well. You have two clashing beliefs. This person said and did things that felt intense and loving, and this same person now treats you like you barely matter. That double truth is hard to sit with. To ease the discomfort, your brain often chooses the story that protects your hope or their image. Instead of concluding that they were playing a game, you might decide that you were too needy, too broken, or not special enough to keep them. That is how emotional exit continues the control, even after they are gone. You question your worth, your memory, your judgment. You may idealize them, focusing on the few amazing moments instead of the long stretches of tension and doubt. You might tell yourself that what you had with them was rare and that your flaws ruined it. This belief can stop you from seeing the pattern clearly and can even make you half ready to let them back in if they ever return. And many players do return. Once they have left clean, with no dramatic blow-up on record, they can pop back up later with a soft or casual message. Something like, "Hey, just thinking of you," or "I miss talking to you." That tiny line hooks all the unresolved emotion they left behind. If you never built your own closure, you might rush to explain yourself again, to understand them, or to restart what you think you almost had. From their view, this is just picking up a game from the shelf whenever they feel like playing again. The truth is, their exit is rarely about you being too much. It is usually about them refusing to face who they are in relationships. They protect their image at all costs. Research on narcissistic and psychopathic traits shows that people high in these traits avoid accountability and tend to see themselves as the victim, no matter what damage they cause. To keep that self-image intact, they need to leave situations before the full truth about them hardens in your mind or is shared with others. So how do you protect yourself from emotional exit, especially when it feels so personal? First, step back and look at the entire pattern. Write it out if you have to. The early charm, the tests, the hot and cold, the excuses, the half apologies. Do not let your mind highlight only the peaks. Let the whole story be visible. When you do that, their leaving starts to look less like a tragic loss and more like the final piece of the same game. Second, pay serious attention to how someone talks about their past relationships. Emotional exit leaves a trail in their stories if you listen closely. If everyone else was crazy, toxic, obsessed, or ungrateful, and they were always the misunderstood one who had to leave, you are hearing the script they will likely use on you. Believing you will be the exception is how you end up in the same role as the people they blamed before. Third, understand that you can give yourself the closure they will not. Closure does not mean feeling okay right away. It means choosing a clear, grounded explanation for what happened, based on behavior, not on promises. You might say to yourself, "I was not treated with steady respect. My pain was minimized. My needs were used against me. They chose confusion instead of honesty." That story hurts, but it honors what you lived. It shifts the problem from your worth to their pattern. Finally, decide that their exit is the end of their influence, not the start of a lifelong wound. You do that by pulling the lessons toward yourself, instead of pushing them inward as shame. The lesson is not, "I am unlovable." The lesson is, "My empathy and hope are powerful, and I need to give them to people who show consistency, not just intensity." The lesson is, "Next time I will slow down when someone moves too fast, tests too often, or avoids real accountability." Emotional exit is designed to keep them spotless and keep you spinning. Seeing it for what it is breaks that spell. They did not disappear because you were small. They disappeared because the game required them to leave before you could fully name what they were doing. Your strength is not in never being targeted by people like this. Your strength is in learning to recognize the rules so early that when a future player tries to leave first and leave clean, you are already gone in the ways that matter. Your mind is clear, your standards are higher, and your heart is no longer available for games that treat it like a testing ground. You are not a stage for someone else's performance. You are not terrain for someone else's war. Once you see these 7 rules, you do not have to play by them again.